Welcome to part 5, OSGi services and components. After listening to this part, you should be able to describe what OSGi services and components are, view components and services in the web console, and create OSGi components. Let's get familiar with third architectural layer of OSGi. In the previous part, we just instantiated and invoked the classes that lives in bundles. The third architectural layer standardizes the way the classes are invoked by introducing a concept of service. Services is a framework for interaction among the bundles. The idea of the framework is expressed in three words: publish, find, and bind. A service is a Java class. Usually it implements an interface. A service is registered in the service registry. To register a service, one needs to provide the service object itself or a service factory object. The service interface name and optional properties that can be used to select the best implementation. If there is more than one, that's what word publish stands for. If a class in our bundle need some features provided in another bundle, it finds the references to service in the service registry. If there are several implementations of one interface available, we can specify which one of them we need using properties. From the reference, we can get access to the actual service and use it. That's what described by bind word. As for the service life cycle, it is determined by its bundle. When the bundle starts, the service is registered. When the bundle stops, the service is deregistered. Since bundles can be started and stopped at any time, the services can come and go at any time too. The core OSGi service API is too low level. Every action requires writing Java code. AEM uses enterprise OSGi features built on top of OSGi API. In particular, there are two features that add two more layers or worth as service API. Those are declarative services and annotations. Declarative services removes the need to write Java code to manage the life cycle of services. Everything that is needed to publish, find, and bind services is specified in the XML descriptor. The binding is done using dependency injection and auto-wiring. However, XML descriptor is not an easy thing for developers to maintain. The using all solution for that in the Java world is using annotations, and that is how it is done in Felix and in AEM. Older versions of the Felix offers a special annotations that allows the developers to declare the service. Then Maven SCR plugin generates the service descriptors basing on it and some other meta information. You may still encounter those annotations in projects that has been worked on for a long time. In addition to declare a service, a developers also had to declare another entity called the component. That is why the approach were simplified in the newer AEM version. So, in AEM version 6.2 or newer OSGi release 6 annotations are used. With OSGi release 6 annotations, one does declare the standalone services, but declare them as a part of components. That takes us one layer up to the enterprise OSGi. In Adobe AEM, services are provided using the components. You cannot create a service without a component in AEM. OSGi components are Java objects managed by the OSGi environments by its part called Service Component Runtime or SCR. Components are described in XML descriptors of their bundles. Each component provides one or more or zero services. And a component can be configured using properties. We'll review that in next part. And in the Java code, one uses the annotations to declare and describe the components. So in AEM, you deal with OSGi components, that is unit of configuration. Components provides the services. Now let's look at the Java code. So let me get back to the IDE. This is the demo application we played with in the previous parts. So let me remind that it has a core module from which a bundle is built, and it has a string generator class that has a method that returns the string. And also I enabled core consumer module. It has string generator version 1 consumer class that creates a new instance of a string generator and invokes it. Currently, the invocation occurs by creating a new instance of string generator class and invoking its method. Let's do that the component way. So let's go to the string generator class. Let me rename it. Let's say string generator impl. Then let's extract an interface. And let's say string generator only. And let's include the generate string method there. So now we have this interface called the string generator. And now let's annotate this class with component. So @component annotation specifies that a class is an OSGi component. This annotation has several important properties. First is immediate. So what it is, if it is set to true, that's an instruction to activate the component as soon as the references are resolved. When it is false, the component is activated when it is first used. The default value, as you see, is false. So by default, the components are not activated. We need to instruct to activate. So let's say true. And there is also an important property, that is service. It specifies the service interface that will be registered in the service registry and exposed to our components. So let's say string generator class. Okay. Now let's do the same with the consumer class. Let's turn it into the OSGi component. That is by using the component annotation. Let's specify the class as the service interface, and let's not make it immediate. Now let's replace the creation of the new instance. So let's declare the variable called string generator. And that's annotated with the reference annotation. So this annotation specifies the reference to the another OSGi service. That variable will be initialized using the dependency injection. So let's replace this with variable. So the reference annotation that specifies the reference to the OSGi service, and that variable will be used to initialize the dependency injection. Let's build the project and see what Maven bundle plugin generates. Done. Now let's go to the file manager. Let's go to the core consumer one and find the bundle jar and take a look at the deployment descriptor. So here is the manifest.mf file, and it has the property called service component, and it contains the path to some XML file. And let's go to that XML file that it was generated. That is OSGi NF. So the XML document defines a component that you can see here, its implementation class, the service that exposes outside, and also it declares a reference to another service that is generated from the annotation. Now we can see here. Now let's see how it works. So let me switch to Chrome and let me open this Groovy console and let me paste the following code. So instead of creating an instance, this string generator version 1 consumer class, we invoke a get service method and pass the class as a parameter now. So we get a service object here, and this service object invokes the method, and let me execute the code. So here is the output version 1.1. It is the value returned by the string generator. This one. So what we did now is looked at a component by the service interface, invoked its method, and that component invoked the service provided by the another component which lives in a different bundle, and we got value from that component. When a component is deployed as a part of a bundle, it is handled by the part of the OSGi environment called Service Component Runtime, or SCR. It performs the following 5 things. It instantiates the component, resolves the references in those components, activates the component that it calls their activation method, registers the services exposed by the component in the service registry, and resolves the references to the services exposed by the components. Let me remind that AEM uses Apache Felix Service Component Runtime. Let's look closer at the component console. For that, I need to visit component console, and there is a list of components instantiated in the environment. Each component has auto-generated ID, name that can be human readable, and if it is not specified, then class name is used as the component name, and it has a status as well. So if the component is initialized successfully, its status is active. So let's play with it. Let's find the component that we have created, and if you remember this string generator version 1 consumer, it references this string generator impl. Let's disable this string generator impl and see what happens. Let's refresh this. So the component that we disable change its status to disabled. The component that references the disabled component change the status to unsatisfied, and there is a remark next to it that explains that reference cannot be resolved. Now let's start the disabled component. Refresh. Search string generator impl. Once that I started is now active, but string generator version 1 consumer is changed to satisfied. So that because the reference is now okay, they satisfied with the component itself hasn't started, and that's because in the code annotated with component annotation but did not put immediate true, and immediate is equals to true is not set, then the component is activated for the first time it is invoked. So let's go to the Groovy console. Here is the code left here that invokes it. Now let's execute it again. Okay, now let's refresh the console and see. So here after the invocation, both components are active. There are other useful OSGi consoles in AEM, and here is the service console. For that, OSGi and services. So where one can see the services in the environments that it contains, all the service registry for a service. So let's open one of them, that is string generator again here. So here service 1 can see the component that exposes the service and the bundle ID to which the component belongs. Let's switch back to our presentation. Now to summarize, bundles interact with each other using services. Service API is low level and requires writing Java code. Declarative services feature allows configuring services using XML descriptors. In AEM, one declares the services as a part of OSGi components. With Maven bundle plugin, one can use the annotation to generate the descriptors. AEM 6.2 and later use OSGi release 6 annotations. Older versions use Felix SCR annotations, which are now deprecated. Components exist within bundles. Components have states. One can monitor and configure components in the web console. Thank you for your attention. In the next part, we will learn how to configure the component in AEM.